Radhe Radhe!
Radhe Radhe.
We're
Jai Shri Radhe.
We're so happy that you're with us. Welcome back, everyone. Jared and I want to offer our humble gratitude to all of you who have been subscribing and clicking and liking. And specifically, we were so touched at the recent boost in viewership and subscriptions and the uptake in participation. You are all touching our hearts so much. Some of you have made the most uplifting, heart-centered, glorious comments that bring us to tears and make us feel so close to you, our global family. Thank you for being on this journey with us and for all the wonderful participation and commentaries. It means the world to us, your support of our little channel.
Radhe Radhe. Thank you, everyone. And so many of you have said, will you come visit us in Bharat in India? Yes! We love coming to India. We've probably been, 7, 8, 9 times? I think maybe 9, you 7 times. So a lot of times. And maybe we can meet some of you in person next time we're there. Want to meet us in Rishikesh or Vrindavan, perhaps? Maybe that's where we'll go next. But today we're going to be talking about a video from Swami Ji on reincarnation. Such a hot button topic, right? What happens to our soul? What happens to our personality? What happens to all that after we die, after we leave the body? And Swami Ji, in his masterful way, is going to illuminate all of us.
Let's find out.
If a child is born blind, and that child on growing up asks, "Why was I born blind?" What is the answer? Sri Krishna has given such a simple and everyday example to bring forth the principle of transmigration of the soul, also called reincarnation. The soul is reincarnating life after life in different bodies. This is the transmigration that is taking place. So somebody may ask the logic behind this. Sri Krishna says, look, every morning you get up, you put off the old clothes and don new clothes. You don't change. Your clothes have changed. You are still the same person. Similarly, the soul too is residing in this body, which is like a garment. And when the garment is unfit to house the soul any further, it has become too dysfunctional, uninhabitable, the soul then discards this garment of the body. By the will of God, it receives another garment. Some people ask the proof of past life. The Vedanta Darshan gives a proof. Maharshi Vedvyas says, Tanya Bhilashat. That newborn baby, how does it learn how to drink milk? The baby is so small, it is not amenable to being taught. It can't understand anything. How can the mother teach that baby that, my child, this is how you need to drink milk? But because the soul has drunk the mother's milk innumerable times in innumerable lifetimes, so the moment the mother puts her breast in the baby's mouth, the baby immediately realizes and starts drinking. Vedvyas has given this as a proof of past life. The Nyaya Darshan gives another proof. It says, Jatasya.
I remember, we have a 3-year-old now, and I remember this occurring when her name is Jaya Hanumana. When she was born, the doctors immediately placed her onto your chest to hold her, and she immediately wrapped her lips around your breast and started drinking.
Yes, she did.
And I was definitely mystified by that. It's like, wow.
It is mystifying, my beloved. Jaya Hanumana's existence is a miracle, and to me, the ultimate proof of the divine in so many ways. I remember for all of you who are mothers or have mothers or no mothers, you just stand in awe and wonderment that this being is being created by the divine inside of you. And I told my beloved many times, I never felt closer to God than when I was carrying a child, because I was not doing anything. I could take no credit besides trying to eat healthily and not trip over anything. But I was taking my own precautions, but I was not creating anything. It's so clear. It's just happening by itself. All this miracle is just happening. And then out comes this life. And I of course remember the first time that she looked up at me and had her first meal from the blessing of God's grace through my body. And it did feel like she knew exactly what she was doing, and that she had done it before. And our little Jaya Hanumana is such a vessel of the divine. She feels things she says. She's so tiny, and she doesn't, we know what we've taught her or not taught her, but she does feel like she's carrying a lot of wisdom and grace from past lives. So that little one is quite a teacher.
Harsha shoka bhaya sampratipataha. Take a look at a little child, a few months old child. Without reason, it becomes fearful. Without reason, it becomes joyous. Without reason, it starts crying. What is happening? Nyaya Darshan says, it is not yet fully forgotten the past life. There are residual memories that are causing the shifting moods of the child. But then the stamp of this life falls so strongly that the child forgets even those residual memories. Beta, I am your father. Say Papa, Papa. And naturally it's forgetting out everything else. So Sri Krishna has given this logic for reincarnation. Swami Dayanand Saraswati, the founder of Arya Samaj, he gave this logic. He said, if a child is born blind, and that child on growing up asks, why was I born blind? What is the answer? You did something bad, but if this is my only life, how come I was born blind? And if you say it was the will of God, God is extremely compassionate. Why should God will somebody to be blind and somebody to have eyes? The only logical answer is, it is because of the karmas of past lives. Whatever you do, good or bad, there is somebody noting and he is going to give the results. So, those past life karmas are manifesting in our different abilities. When I was growing up, when I was an 8-year-old, there was a little girl in our neighborhood. She was about 5 years. And her mother was a friend of my mother. Her mother would tell my mother that my child sits and reads the namaz. Born in the Hindu household at the age of 5, without any exposure to Mohammedan customs, she sits in that Vajrasana and placing her hands like this, reads the namaz. She would say, I do not encourage her. I don't wish her to remember too much. 1 year later, I asked my mother, and she said,
her friend has told her that the daughter has now forgotten. There have been innumerable instances of people remembering their past lives all around the world in all cultures. Now, these are all exceptions to the rule. The rule is that we forget. You see, the process of death is such that a whole lot of impressions in our memory bank are wiped out by the pain of death. And then the pain of rebirth is even more than the pain of death for the baby. A whole lot of more impressions are wiped out, and yet a few residual memories do remain with that little baby. But as an exception, a few people remember, thereby giving us yet another reason to believe that world and life are not irrational and illogical. Whatever we do stays with us. We have the opportunity to build our destiny and grow to the highest perfection from lifetime to lifetime. And that is why we should be optimistic. We should be cheerful, keeping our faith in this concept of rebirth.
So fascinating, because this notion of like clearing out the memories occurring from the death and then from the rebirth, but some are residual, that there's some aspects of our past that contribute to who we are today, what our body is like, what our personality is like. I think the most common thing when you talk to parents who have multiple kids, and you know, I've talked to many over the years, they all say the same thing, that their child's essence, their kind of core personality was clear weeks out of the womb, and then when they were 3, 5, 10, 15, more nuanced aspects of that unfolded, but they literally, their core personality was established immediately before there was any nurturing, and the other child in the same family with the same DNA had completely different personalities, wisdom, kind of internal strength, whatever the case may be. And that prolonged and persisted for many, many years, and that's who they became as well. And I was like, that seems unlikely, but everyone's saying the same thing. Now, when Jaya Hanumana was born, she immediately had this ferocious yet tender and curious personality. We saw it, and now we see it at age 3 and every time in between. And we sense that if we had another, which I'm not sure we're going to, but if God so wishes, that baby would have its own essence and personality. And it's like we all think it's the DNA and it's the parenting techniques. But I've been witnessing over the last 3 years, and again, as Rebecca G., my beloved wife, said, we try to do everything we can to foster spirituality, love, compassion, resilience in our daughter. But ultimately, her essence, her internal state has nothing to do with us. We are not the doer. It's God and Guru. We have nothing to do with it, and we constantly see that every day, don't we?
Well said. Yes, if you're interested to see a little of her personality, in the short section of our channel, you'll see a clip of her walking with Swamiji, and there's one with her talking, and you can really get a sense of her ferocious, strong, magical, beautiful personality.
Which we had nothing to do with.
In the 19th century, there was a German philosopher called Schopenhauer. He said, if an Asiatic were to ask me the definition of Europe, I would say it is that part of the globe which is suffering from the delusion that this life is our first entry into existence and there is no life after death. All right? So, in the eastern part of the world, reincarnation has invariably been accepted. It is a principle in Hinduism, in Sikhism, in Jainism. in a particular form in Buddhism as well. But you will be surprised to know, if you do a study of world religions, that many of the early Christians also believed in reincarnation. The Bible talks about John the Baptist being Elijah the prophet come back. Many of the Sufi saints believe in reincarnation. The great philosopher Plato in Greece, he believed that those who are blind followers of social traditions will in their next life become bees and ants. Those who are very cruel will become foxes and wolves. Those who are attached to gluttony will become pigs and hogs. So many of the Western thinkers have believed in reincarnation.
So I just have to comment here that these days I mostly only read Swami Mukundananda's books. And then I sprinkle in a couple others here and there. And I've always wanted to read Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. And I just finished it. It's quite thick. And I was mesmerized by his recounting of what Swamiji is also saying, and so many other great saints, that there's references in the Bible to reincarnation, and certain of the prophets were referenced in other ways that they had come back. And that just blew my mind. And there's wonderful chapters in Autobiography of a Yogi about his experience with reincarnated beings, and a specific story about a young boy that was following him in his ashram in India who was quite ill, and asked him, "Well, come find me when I come back, because I want to continue my journey with you." And Yogananda gave the promise, and then did find him, the reincarnated soul of the young boy. And it's such a touching, heartwarming, explosive story. And I had tears. And from when I was introduced to the concept of reincarnation later in life, I hadn't studied it in my early young years. It absolutely resonates as so true for me when you see, all of this incredible wonderment in the world, and to say that we only get one shot at life and it's our first and only life, it no longer feels true to me. So for me, reincarnation is really feels like that's what goes down. But everyone has their different views, but that's my view, is that's indeed what's happening here. But I just want to say this: when I first learned about it, I got a little upset. Because it rang true for me, and it was kind of an exciting concept that we get many chances to become perfected souls, and the reason why we're being sent back is to learn to love God and become God realized, so we just keep doing it until we reach the divine. But then I thought, what did I do in my past lives? And oh no, I don't know what I did, and how much can I repair in this life if I did wrong, and then in this life if I've got bad karma up till now. So I got upset about it, and then I realized Swamiji, who's such a profound teacher, as we all know who've been following him, and others have said, he hasn't said it exactly like this, but basically, destiny is the cards you're dealt, right? That you have a destiny from your past karmas. You're dealt certain cards. But fate is how we play the cards. And we have the chance in this life. There is a measure of agency. Of course, we need God's grace to do anything. But we can, what we call pick up the stick, where from a story of you have the ability to pick up what you need to pick up and change your karma and do good deeds and be good and do good and feel good and continue towards God. I have no hope in this life, I don't think, of becoming God realized, because it's such a tall order, but I do have the hope to try and to keep pushing, and not to let the notion of reincarnation make me feel afraid, or what did I do in my past life? I don't know. What have I stored up bad karma in this life? And not to let fear rule us, and be inspired by the truth of reincarnation. Be excited that I have the chance to do so much in this life, and let me not waste another moment of this precious birth. It's such a divine gift from God.
That was beautiful. And my sense is that even though clearly, because of how far away we are from God realization, obviously we have plenty of karmas from our past that need to be cleaned up, and we have a long way to go. Probably for me, millions and millions of lifetimes. And non-dichotomously, look at all of the blessings we have. We have our Guru, Swamiji, a living bhakti saint, guiding us. We have been given each other. You to me, you're proof that I must have done at least one thing right in the last few lives, because I got the most incredible, loving, compassionate, spiritual wife on the planet. We have Jaya Hanumana. Our work that we do is an opportunity to do Dharma, to serve others. We have the opportunity in the Seva project to try to be tiny little morsels of service to our Guru Dev Swamiji. We have you as a community watching videos where we're trying to share and play our tiny role in spreading the light of Swamiji. So we also have amazing karmas, because again, we certainly haven't earned that. It's by virtue of the grace and the karma. So many million lifetimes to go, and so incredibly grateful for what we have right now.
Amen, Jima.
In reincarnation, it is said that many of the Christians in early Christianity believed in it. However, I believe it was the 6th century, that a council took place, or maybe it was the 1st century, a council took place, and it was unanimously decided that reincarnation is after this considered heresy. Many people feel this decision was made to enhance the power of the Roman Catholic Church, because if there is an afterlife, then you can make up for things in future lives. But if there is no afterlife, then this life is so important that based on it you will go to heaven or hell forever. And it is the priests who are giving those papers and absolving you of sins. They become very powerful. So many people feel that this decision by the Roman Catholic Church to consider reincarnation as a heresy was made just to enhance their power. Nevertheless, although the Bible does not make specific mention of it, there is a place where Jesus is talking to a rabbi called Nebuchadnezzar, and he talks about afterlife. And the rabbi says, is there life after life? And Jesus says, when you don't believe when I tell you things of this world, how will you believe when I tell you things of the other world? So many concepts were not revealed by the great prophets, because the people to whom they were teaching were not prepared to understand and believe in them. The teacher may be a PhD, but if he is teaching to grade 1 students, he will teach 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. So this concept of reincarnation is it's a very commonly accepted principle of Hinduism, and slowly it is gaining acceptance around the world as well. In fact, it's one of the fundamental beliefs amongst 27% of the world population, which makes it very popular.
Would love to hear in the comments any examples you all have of maybe awarenesses of past lives or awareness of reincarnation from someone you know, or any personal experiences you have of that. It would be fascinating to learn from you.
So when I went around asking people, I asked a friend of mine who's very well read. I was told that there's something very humbling about that place, Manikarnika. And anyone who goes there realizes that, this is what all your efforts, all your goals, all your journeys end with. You end on a funeral pyre. You end being cremated. So my question is, one, what do you think of the moment of death? And two, what do you carry beyond death? Like, I know, spirituality says that you carry your karma beyond death, but there has to be some other stuff that you're taking beyond.
So, super excited to see the answer from Swami Ji. If you want to watch the full video, this is an interview on a very popular Indian podcast. I think it's called Beer and Biceps, which is a funny name for Swami Ji to join in on, but it's one of the most illuminating conversations with this young boy who's very sweet and asks many really thoughtful questions, and Swami Ji just showers grace throughout the entire podcast. So if you, on YouTube, if you haven't seen it, it's probably an hour long. It's pure magic, and it's you just put in the search terms beer and biceps Swami Mukundananda, and the whole interview will pop up, and we highly recommend it.
So good.
Death is the reality of life, and it's the only thing that is certain in life. That is why they say in English, as sure as death. And life is literally dead end, because we're all going to end in death. So people are disturbed about it because they don't accept that reality. However, when the sun rises, we know it's going to set one day. And when it sets, we are not disturbed. So when we see the phenomenon of death, rather than be shocked by it or be troubled by it, we should accept it and adopt it into our worldview. That is what the Buddha did. He was living in a palace in the midst of so much of luxury, and astrologers had told his parents, don't let him see life or he will become detached. So they tried to protect him. But then one day he went out walking and he saw a dead person. He said, oh, so death is a reality of life. I will die one day. And we all know he saw a sick person, an old person. So death is a fact of life. But our scriptures teach us to understand it from the perspective of knowledge. So the Bhagavad Gita says, Vasansi jirna niyatha vihaya navani grihnati naro parani. Lord Krishna says, Arjun, every day when you wake up in the morning, you take off your old clothes, have a bath, put on new clothes, but you remain the same person. Likewise, death is merely the soul changing bodies. And somebody in knowledge is not disturbed by it. So if actually our body is changing in this life itself, we had the body of a little child, then a youth, then an adult. Likewise, at the time of death, we will again change bodies. So we should decide that it is not something to be disturbed about, but what are we going to carry with us? At the time of death, the gross body is left behind. And there are two other bodies that are enveloping the soul that it carries along with it. The first is Karana Sharir, or causal body. It has our sanskars, our karmas of endless lifetimes. And the second is the subtle body. So astonishingly, the mind, the intellect, the ego, these constitute the subtle body, they continue with the soul. So our mind is not of one lifetime. It's coming from past lives. And that is why in childhood sometimes you get the feeling of deja vu. Oh my God, I have seen this before. Why does this seem so familiar? Right? So the French have this term deja vu. And we have an explanation for it. That the mind is continuing from the past. So some of the images, etc. from the past are embedded in the subconscious. So that is also continuing with the soul.
Fascinating, and this is kind of relating to what we were talking about before of why our core personality comes in as it is. It's like I have two sisters. We all have the same DNA, the same childhood environment, the same nurturing, the same parenting we received, and we could not be more different. You have two siblings as well, same thing, right? And this notion that reincarnation, you don't hear this as often. We hear a reincarnation of the soul, but this is really illuminating to me. Not only does the soul reincarnate, but the mind, the intellect, and the ego reincarnates because it's a package deal. Fascinating.
It's amazing stuff. Mind-blowing.
Mind-blowing. Is that a pun?
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
What do you think? What do you think your past was, sir? That you've chosen this life now.
It's so interesting you ask. Very few people ask that question.
I just want to pause. We've seen Swamiji been asked hundreds, maybe thousands of questions, and he 100% of the time, no matter what the question, how unique, how challenging, how creative, how normal, if it's based on scripture, based on someone's unique experience, something occurring in the world, he's basically unflappable and responds with the same energy. This is one of the only times I've ever seen anyone ask him a question and see that reaction, and it's so beautiful.
It's so beautiful. I love Swamiji so much, and his laughter and surprise, it just rips through my heart. I could watch him respond to that 100 times.
Let's hear what he says after that incredible emotional jubilation.
I don't know, but I can guess.
Sure.
As a child, I just loved the hills. It was such a thrill any time I would go to the hills. And that makes me think that I was possibly somewhere in the hills. And then, just share one episode. When I was doing engineering, after engineering, I got admission into a college in Calcutta.
IIM.
That's right. So my parents used to go to a numerologist, and he told them that don't let him go to Calcutta or he'll take sannyas. They said, he doesn't look like sannyasi material to us. So they said they let me go. And things happened there that completely changed my perspective. It did not take time at all. So it made me feel that those sanskars were there, and it was all destined. When the time came, that switch got flipped, and I just continued on the journey from there.
Wow. Going to IIM, one of the most prestigious institutions of management and business in the entire world, his parents were specifically told, if he goes, he will take sannyas, which makes no sense. Going to IIM is like the opposite, right? It's becoming a master of worldly business. And they were like, not possible. He doesn't seem like that material. And then it happened. How beautiful is that? What is your reaction and your emotions, my love?
I'm just speechless when I hear our guru talking about these incidents from his life. I have no words.
Okay, let's watch the last 2 minutes or so of this video.
Arjun had raised his concern that in the battle all these people will die. Sri Krishna is giving him a different perspective. Nobody is born and nobody dies. They are all eternal. So, when we say the soul is eternal, somebody can question, then what about death? At the time of death, we cease to be. He is saying, no, Arjun. Take a look at life itself. If you see your family album, there's a newborn baby. Swamiji, that is me. Then there is a 2-year-old. Swamiji, that is also me. And then there is an 8-year-old, that is also me, in the short pants. And that young adult getting married is also me. And this middle-aged person, that is also me. But how come the bodies are completely different? How can you say this is me, this is me, this is me? No, 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 no. Through all these bodies, there's a connection. The soul is remaining the same. Similarly, Sri Krishna says, Arjun, at the time of death as well, the soul changes the body. Where is that body, the newborn body? It's gone. But you are not gone. Where is that 2-year-old's body? That's also gone. Medical science will tell you that your cells have a life of 7 years and then they die away. New cells take their place. In the space of 7 years, your whole body is changed. And the molecules inside the cell, they are changing even faster. Some scientists estimate that in 1 year, 98% of your molecules change. And yet you don't change. So similarly, like you have changed so many bodies in this lifetime, Arjun, at the time of death as well, you will merely change the body. This body will be left behind. You will get a new one. One who is in knowledge, he says, is not deluded by their own death or the death of others.
Well, I want to say that when my beloved and I's love exploded by God's grace and we became a divine unit for this life, I have been learning so many things from my beloved husband, who is so wise and amazing and unlike most men on the planet, in my view. I think he's the tip top. And one of the things that I observed from him and then learned is he never used the phrase they died or he died. He always says they left the body. And I observed that for a long time and then asked about that. And my beloved shared with me that the language we use is so important. And because he doesn't believe in death as it's labeled death, that's the end, that so he doesn't use that phrase. It's they left the body because that's what's happening. The body has been left behind because it's no longer needed. So I decided to adopt this phrase as well for my languaging if someone has left the body. So I say they left the body. Now this raises some eyebrows for people who don't understand that phrase, but I've adopted it because I feel it's important not to say they died, because that's not an accurate representation of the truth of what's the higher capital T truth. So that's one thing I want to say about how we interact with the concept of death, in quotes, or when the soul leaves the body. And some people fear it. Some people fear their own death, the death of others. I also want to say it's very interesting because today I received, we get all these mass emails and newsletters. I received a newsletter from one of my past meditation teachers who had a close friend for 40 years who died unexpectedly. And of course and she was quite young, in her mid-60s. And when someone passes away, leaves the body, unexpectedly, she used the phrase pass away.
Yeah.
When they leave the body unexpectedly, so we have a sense of shock or grief. And Swamiji talked about we shouldn't be shocked by it. But if a child dies or leaves the body, there you go.
It's hard.
It's hard to say, well, I'm not shocked by it. God is calling them home, or their karma is such that they need to change bodies sooner than old age. So for me, it helps when it becomes quite personal and we have a personal loss that seems shocking, if someone is hit by a car or dies of cancer young or a child dies and we experience that personally, it's much harder to have a ascended spiritual response that, well, this is just reincarnation and karma. It feels very grief-stricken. So I always like to, at those moments, and this morning I had this experience of trying to both hold space for the feeling of grief, that because we're so inundated with Maya and attachments that we mourn the loss of that person leaving their body behind, and there's not necessarily anything wrong with us for doing that. It's just a reflection that we're not God realized. But at that time, not pretending we don't have grief, not experiencing the pain of the loss that the illusion we're under, that's true, but it hurts the heart when it's an unexpected leaving of the body. And to simultaneously try and call in the higher truth that they haven't really left, because nobody leaves. And the final point I'll make is, I read a beautiful thing that says the reason why we should treat everyone with love and compassion and sweetness is that everyone was our close relative at some point, right? That because of reincarnation, everybody you encounter had some close relationship with you. And that always makes me smile when we're apt to treat strangers with a little less love and compassion, or maybe a lot less, that remembering the reincarnation, they were probably our mother, father, friend, sister, brother, teacher in a past life. That's my concluding thought.
Vrindavan Bihari Lala Ki.
Jai!
Thank you for joining us today.